Complex numbers have a real part, a, added to the imaginary part, b, that is multiplied to I, and I is the square root of -1. Complex numbers are not useful for counting things but are good for making equations work. Being in academia is as complex numbers. The real part of academia is exploitative and unsustainable, but it is sustainable because the imaginary part of academia makes graduate students and postdoctoral scholars do work. Let's look at some examples of complex numbers. A grad student and a postdoc thought the work schedule was 7.5 hours per day. The real work schedule regularly exceeded 8 hours per day and even up to 16 hours. People have the equivalent of weekends or holidays when they do not have to work. There is work on most weekends and holidays. A postdoc did experiments on weekdays and desk work on evenings and weekends. Funny enough, a professor sent a weekend email reminding the postdoc to work on a document that he was already working on at that moment. Added together, the postdoc worked much more than 1.0 full-time job despite whatever the contract imagines. Do grad students and postdocs work like crazy because the pay is good? No. There is no overtime pay for grad students and postdocs. Somehow the grad student and postdoc imagined that working harder would bring some sort of non-monetary reward, like collecting more data, publishing more papers, and better resume. Many experiments did not fit in a typical workday. An experiment that took 10 hours? They couldn't stop when their shifts were done because stopping the experiment partway would ruin the experiment that had taken weeks or even months to collect samples. Think of it as doing surgery. You have to stay until you complete the entire surgery. You can't ask the patient to come back tomorrow when you are back at work. Grad students and postdocs have no overtime pay, and the regular pay is shit. A trusted professor told a prospective student that a livable grad student salary is $30,000 per year. The real salary of $22,000 per year had to pay for at least $30,000 worth of necessities like tuition, as grad students, rent, and food. No money for fun or savings. This was a conservative estimate for domestic students. It was more costly for international students because they paid much more tuition than domestic students. Yes, grad students pay tuition. Grad students receive low salaries for doing research for the university and pay money back to the university as tuition. Students can apply for scholarships. The student imagined receiving both the $18,000 scholarship plus the original $22,000 salary from the professor. The real salary for a scholarship recipient was $24,000. Where did the extra money go? To the lab. Job advertisements for postdoc positions may say $50,000 per year, but professors can pay you less by making the contract less than a year. The professor did not lie, but the asshole did not tell the truth either. A postdoc alternated between working for low pay and working for free. Free? How ridiculous is that? More than once, the professor told the postdoc that he would receive a contract but did not give him a real contract for months and avoided the question when he asked. The postdoc could just not work, but the grad students needed the postdoc's guidance for experiments, and the postdoc had papers that were ready to publish. Out of compassion for these students, the postdoc couldn't abandon them and he didn't want to give up on papers that he worked so much on by himself. The postdoc thought he was being exploited, but another postdoc in the same research group made less money. A trusted professor told a postdoc that PhDs make $100,000 or more. The real salary was about $5,000 in a year, equivalent to $5 per hour. Employers expect doctoral-level work without paying doctoral-level salary. What if the postdoc refused those crappy jobs? Then, he would have no jobs and no salary in this predatory job market. Working conditions. Media often show professors in lab coats doing experiments as if they are the only researchers in the lab. Grad students and postdocs do almost if not all of the experiments and data analysis. The joke is on the grad students and postdoc because they were the ones working regularly overtime in the lab, not the professors, and no one was taking their pictures to put on a glossy website. Even though we have one set of lab rules and research goals, there are multiple standards depending on which side of the power imbalance you are on. A grad student and a postdoc tried to find answers to supervisory issues but received barely any useful replies despite universities having so many administrators. With such low pay, inhumane working conditions, and feeling powerless, it is not surprising that 36 to 48% of doctoral students in multiple surveys had anxiety and depression. There are university emails and posters advertising how mental health is important and support is available. If there was genuine and effective action to support the mental health of students, then why were there so many students with psychiatric problems? It is noteworthy when grad students developed mental health issues, or their mental health worsened, during their time in academia. If you are considering grad school, it is important to be aware of these shitty things that have happened so you can avoid them. If you are having these problems, you are not alone. We are in this mess together.